refused to shake hands with the black CEO the next day. $5 billion unexpectedly disappeared. Ted Jacobs stood frozen, hand outstretched but heart pounding, as the bright autumn sun reflected off the polished cufflinks of Marcus Williams, the newly minted CEO who promised to breathe life into Maplewood. The whispers around him echoed like menacing shadows. "Stay cautious, Ted. Outsiders can't be trusted." But did he really believe that? Looking into Marcus's eager eyes, hope mixed with trepidation, yet he chose to hold back, retracting not just his hand but a larger future for his community. Joe, one of his neighbors, raised an eyebrow. "You really aren't gonna shake his hand?" The weight of that moment sunk deep, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth and soon, in the entire town's future. As week turned into month, the jovial Maplewood he knew began to splinter. The news broke like thunder. Spending for the development vanished overnight, leaving the community and Ted's family reeling. Ted's reputation, a solid wall of trust he'd built, started to erode. Each job he'd counted on evaporated, replaced by anxiety and uncertainty. Whispers turned into cold, sidelong glances from neighbors who once shared drinks at his backyard barbecues. All around him, he felt a tightening grip on his chest. His teenage daughter, Jess, once proud of her father's steadfastness, began to shrink under the weight of unspoken disappointment. Jess confronted him one afternoon, her voice shaking but clear. "Dad, you taught me to be better than this. What you did, it hurt us. Can't you see that?" Those words echoed in Ted's mind, sharp and unforgiving. He didn't just let down a black man with ambition, he shattered dreams that were never his alone to shatter. The walls of his home felt like they were closing in. As Jess poured her heart out, he saw in her eyes not just anger but an ache for the family values he'd always cherished: hard work, integrity, unity. How could he have forsaken that? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ted looked outside, taking in the quiet street where laughter used to spill from every yard but his. The heart of Maplewood beat weakly, stifling under unresolved tension. He felt a swell of emotion, shame heavy and suffocating. He knew he had to make it right. The thought of facing Marcus again filled him with dread, but worse was the thought of leaving things as they were. Time for redemption, he decided. A public apology on the town's green seemed unavoidable, the first step toward healing, not just for his family, but for everyone in Maplewood. With every hesitant step toward a brighter future ahead, he wondered if he could truly help mend the fractures created by his fear. Could a single, genuine act really begin to heal the wounds? As he prepared for what lay ahead, Ted stood at the edge of an emotional precipice, hoping his journey could spark a change in others as well. Would his heart be strong enough to lead a community back into the light of understanding and unity? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the answers loomed just beyond the horizon. The sun dipped low into the horizon, casting long shadows over Maplewood South Town Square. Ted felt each pulse of his heart, each beat a reminder of the weight he carried. The town's green was empty, whispering secrets only the wind knew. With every step forward, he imagined the faces of his neighbors, the ones who once backed him, who now looked at him with disappointment. What would they think? What would Marcus think? Ted took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. The announcement for the apology had drawn a small crowd, people gathering out of curiosity, out of anger, or perhaps from a flicker of hope. He could feel their stares, could sense the murmured conversations, each one adding fire to his anxiety. As he climbed onto the small, makeshift stage that overlooked the square, the weight of their gazes became almost unbearable. He looked out at the faces and saw Jess, her expression a mixture of trust and concern. That made the swell of urgency even stronger within him. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about her, about their family, about Maplewood. "Thank you all for coming," he started, his voice quaking slightly. "I stand here today not just as Ted Jacobs but as someone who has failed. I have let fear dictate my actions, and in doing so, I lost sight of what really matters, the trust of our community." He scanned the crowd, noting the faces that were hard to read. Some looked sympathetic, while others remained cold and distant. Ted forged ahead, fueled by determination. "I refused to shake hands with Marcus Williams when I should have embraced what he brought to our town. I let doubt cloud my judgment, and I'm sorry for that." The soft sounds of murmured conversations filled the air. He took a step closer to the edge of the stage, trying to connect with the souls in front of him, to reach them. "We need to learn, to grow. I'm here to tell you actions have consequences. And I want to change, not just for myself but for each one of you." At that moment, a voice broke through the silence, deep and resonant. "And what do you expect us to do, Ted? Just forget?" It was Joe. Ted felt the heat of the community's resentment rise, a palpable wave of anger. "No, Joe. I don't expect you to forget. I need you to remember this mistake, to help me make it right. I want us to come together to support Marcus, to understand his vision for Maplewood," Ted replied, his voice steadier now, bolstered by a newfound resolve. A silence enveloped the crowd as the weight of his words settled. Was there skepticism? Yes. But also a flicker of hope. The small gathering, initially fueled by tension, began to stir. Jess stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. "Dad, please don't just say it. Show it." "Exactly." Another neighbor called out. "He has to prove it." Ted nodded, feeling a spark of unity among the crowd. "You're right. We need to act together. Let us set up a town hall meeting with Marcus. Let us bring him into our lives, make his vision ours. Because this town belongs to all of us." As he stepped down from the platform, murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. But beneath that agreement lay the uncertainty of whether they were ready to truly open their hearts to change. The stakes were high. Would they be willing to rebuild trust, or would Ted's past actions haunt them all? The path ahead was fraught with challenges, redemption on the horizon. As he rejoined Jess in the crowd, he felt the knot in his stomach loosen, if only slightly. The hard work was just beginning, but he wouldn't face it alone. "Are you ready?" Jess asked, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "I am," he breathed, though doubt flickered in his mind. "But it's time we all are." The town had turned toward the horizon, but could they really step into the light, hand in hand with the future they had shunned? The question lingered, echoing in the shadows of what had been a question that would define them all. Later that evening, the town hall buzzed with an uneasy energy. Ted stepped inside, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes again, but this time, it was different. A flicker of determination sparked inside him. He wasn't just here to face accusations, he was ready to hear them, ready to listen, and more importantly, ready to act. The room was packed. Faces he recognized, some friendly, others who had turned away after the incident. He found Jess seated near the front, her gaze steady, holding a glimmer of hope. There was discomfort in the air, mixed with a palpable curiosity. The question of whether Marcus would join them loomed large. As he took his place at the front, the murmur quieted down. Joe was there, leaning back with crossed arms, his expression skeptical as ever. Ted took a deep breath, his pulse quickening. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about healing, but he knew it wouldn't come easy. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he said, trying to project warmth and sincerity. "We've all felt the rift in our community, and it's time for us to mend it. Marcus Williams is here tonight, and I want to invite him to share his vision with us." A hand shot up before he could finish. Joe's voice cut through the moment. "Why should we trust him? Why should we believe you're not just playing politics here? Ted steeled himself, meeting Joe's gaze. I understand your anger, Joe. I do. This isn't about checking boxes or giving speeches. It's about real change, and I know change is scary. But I believe that Marcus can bring fresh ideas that can help us all. A murmur swept through the crowd again, this time mixed with a sense of intrigue. Could they really unite? Just then, the door creaked open, and Marcus stepped inside, the room going completely still. He held himself with quiet confidence, scanning the crowd. Thank you for having me, Marcus began, his voice calm yet powerful. I know there's been a lot of hurt and misunderstanding. I'm not here to offend or divide, I'm here to listen and to share. He proceeded to lay out plans that involved everyone from improving local businesses to creating a community center that provided resources for all families. The ideas were met with a mix of surprise and skepticism. People leaned in, drawn by the potential of what he was proposing. Ted watched as expressions shifted among his neighbors. That skepticism began to fade, replaced by curiosity. There was something about Marcus's authenticity that was disarming. But it was Joe who shattered the moment. What do you say to those who think you're here to take over, to change who we are? The air tightened with anticipation. Everyone held their breath. I want no part in control. My aim is collaboration, Marcus replied, his eyes steady, unwavering. I believe diversity can strengthen us, not divide us. Together, we can be a stronger Maplewood. A collective gasp echoed in the room. Could they really build something together? Now's our chance, whispered Jess, her excitement bubbling over. Ted felt the hope swell within him, though the doubt still stirred like a storm inside. Would they actually come together? And then, just as he thought they were reaching an agreement, the door swung open again. 2 officers entered, their expressions serious. We need to discuss the funds for the community project. The room fell silent, questions swirling like autumn leaves. What did that mean? A sense of dread flickered in Ted's stomach. As they spoke of unexpected financial issues that had arisen, Ted's thoughts turned chaotic. The path to redemption felt closer, yet another storm loomed on the horizon. Would the town's struggle with trust and financial stability ruin what little progress they had made? As Ted fought to focus, the raw concern of his community buzzed around him, shadows creeping back into the light they had just begun to hold. Could he step up, once more, to lead them through this impending crisis? The answer hung in the air, as uncertain as it was unfathomable. Would Ted be their guiding light, or would he stumble again? The weight of that decision pressed heavily on his shoulders. As the officers began to explain the funding issues, Ted felt the walls of the room closing in. His heart pounded as he caught glimpses of worried faces, the flickering candlelight casting shadows that mirrored their uncertain expressions. Jess shifted in her seat, her anticipation turning into anxiety. What do you mean, funds? Joe's voice was sharp, slicing through the tension. We thought this was a done deal. Are we not getting the support we need? The anger in his tone echoed throughout the hall, igniting murmurs among the crowd. Yes, we were promised resources, another voice piped up, breaking the silence. Where are the checks that were supposed to come through? Ted felt his stomach drop. He could sense distrust seeping back into their community faster than he could hold on to their hope. It seemed just moments ago they were glimpsing the potential of a future where they could work together. Now, fears resurfaced like ghosts. Let us remain calm, Ted urged, his voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside him. Let us hear what they have to say. The lead officer cleared his throat, shifting nervously. We've encountered a budget shortfall due to unforeseen circumstances. Emergency allocations have redirected funds that were originally earmarked for community development. Frustration rippled through the crowd. This is exactly what we're talking about. Joe called out. How can we trust someone to lead us when we can't even ensure steady funding? Ted felt 2 worlds colliding in that moment, the hope they de-ignited and the reality that threatened to extinguish it. He realized they needed answers, and quick. He caught Marcus's eye, seeing a flicker of the same determination that had drawn him to this fight in the first place. "Marcus, do you have insights on this?" Ted asked, inviting Marcus into the conversation. He hoped he could somehow redirect this collective anger towards solutions rather than blame. Marcus stood up, his composure both startling and reassuring. "Thank you, Ted. I understand your concerns. This is crucial for our progress. We cannot afford to lose this momentum." His words sparked interest among the crowd again, and Ted could see people leaning forward, ready to listen. "Let us brainstorm," Marcus continued, pacing slowly. "This town has faced adversity before. We overcame it by working together. Let us discuss alternative funding sources, grants, or even local sponsorship." The idea hung in the air, heavy yet tangible. Faces lit up, each person considering the possibilities. "Do we really have time?" Someone muttered from the back. "Weeks are slipping away, what if it's too late?" Ted's heart sank. Time was not on their side. It felt as if they were standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to jump, but unsure of where their landing would be. "I know we can do this," Ted said, feeling the urgency build within him. "Together. We need every idea on the table. If we can unite, we're strong. Let us take a step forward. Who's with us?" He scanned the crowd, waiting for signs of agreement. A few hesitant hands raised, then more began to follow. Yet, in the shadows of the hall, Joe remained motionless, distrust etched deeply into his features. "You think this will work? You think we'll just find a solution because we're together? What if it's all a waste?" The words hit Ted like a cold slap. The breeze of doubt swept through the room, cooling the warmth that had started to build. "Every step forward has its risks," Marcus insisted, his voice firm. "But standing still? That's the biggest risk we face." Others began to murmur, the conversation starting to merge into hopes of action. The tension in Ted's chest eased slightly. They were still in it together, at least for now. As the discussions continued, with ideas rippling toward a plan, Ted couldn't shake the weight of Joe's doubt. Did he really believe they could pull together in the face of such uncertainty? With a deep breath, he braced himself for what lay ahead. The night was nowhere near done, and he felt that something monumental was about to unfold. Could Ted maintain the confidence they needed, or would Joe's skepticism chip away at the fragile foundation they were trying to build? The answers seemed just out of reach, and Ted knew that the next twist could change everything. The chatter in the room grew louder, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the occasional cheer as ideas began to form. Ted felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos, but that hope was dimmed as he caught sight of Joe's unyielding expression. Doubt loomed large, and Ted knew they had to turn that doubt around. "Let us talk logistics," Marcus said, clapping his hands together to regain attention. "We need to identify who in our community can reach out to potential sponsors. Think local businesses, schools, even larger organizations that might see value in our project." "Sure, but what if they all say no?" Joe shot back. "What's our backup plan? How do we convince our neighbors who are already struggling?" A pause settled over the group. The question hung heavily, and Ted saw heads nodding slowly in agreement with Joe's skepticism. For the first time, he felt the crack in their collective spirit. But he refused to let it fracture completely. "Listen," he said, raising his voice slightly to cut through the haze of doubt, "we've got stories to tell. Personal stories. We're not just asking for money, we're inviting people to be part of something bigger. Remember why we started." The group began to buzz again, members exchanging stories of their own struggles, hopes, and the unity they shared. Ted watched as their enthusiasm illuminated the room. Each tale was a thread weaving them closer together. "So we tell our stories," Jess said, her voice brimming with conviction. We invite people in and make them feel a part of our community. If we show them what this means to us exactly, Marcus interjected, a smile breaking across his face. People respond to passion and authenticity. Let us create a campaign that captures that spirit. Ted felt momentum shifting. He couldn't help but join in their excitement, even as Joe remained a still figure at the back, arms crossed tightly. Okay, Ted said, rolling his sleeves up. Let us break into smaller groups. Some can work on drafting a proposal to potential sponsors. Others can draft a narrative that captures our purpose. This is it, folks. We are stepping into the spotlight together. Cries of agreement echoed through the room as members hurried to form groups, scribbling notes and exchanging ideas. The energy was palpable, each person energized by a shared vision. As Ted walked around, listening to passionate discussions and brainstorming sessions, a familiar voice pulled him from his optimistic reverie. It's all a facade, Ted, Joe said quietly, his eyes dark and skeptical. You think this is gonna solve anything? People will get burned out. They always do. Ted met Joe's gaze, feeling the weight of the negativity pressing in. What if you're wrong? What if by shifting our focus, we really do create something lasting? Isn't it worth a shot? Skepticism flickered in Joe's eyes, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he shifted his weight, as if debating silently. Ted could sense the tension between them as palpable as the air in the room, thick with unspoken words. Just then, the door creaked open, and in walked the lead officer again, looking drawn and urgent. Ted's stomach tightened. Excuse me, everyone, he interrupted the brainstorming session, drawing every eye in the room. We have new developments regarding the funding situation. Fear rippled through Ted. What now? As the officer began to speak, a mix of anxiety and curiosity gripped everyone. What new information could possibly shift the direction they had just started to chart? The officer cleared his throat, faltering under the weight of their collective gazes. It appears some unexpected resources have become available. Ted leaned forward, heart racing, a fresh wave of hope flooding through him. Would this be the break they had all been waiting for, or would it be another wrench in their plans? As the officer continued, he felt a shadow move behind him. It was Joe, whispering softly, I really hope it's something good. Otherwise, we're going to be in deeper trouble. But Ted couldn't shake the feeling of impending change. This could be the moment they define, for better or worse. Would the new development advocate for their cause, or tear them apart even more? The room hung heavy with anticipation, and all eyes were on the officer, waiting for the next unpredictable twist in their journey. The room went silent. Everyone held their breath, hanging on to the officer's every word like a lifeline. Ted's heart hammered in his chest. He struggled against the heaviness in his stomach, willing it to be something that could help their community rather than drag them down into despair. It's more complicated than we hoped, the officer continued, his brow furrowed. While there are additional funds available, they come with conditions. A murmur swept through the crowd, confusion mixing with a flicker of hope. Conditions? Joe echoed, his voice cutting through the low hum of chatter. What kind of conditions? The officer shifted uneasily, glancing at the notes in his hands. They require a community meeting to present our project's potential, and it may necessitate compromise on our original vision. Ted felt his chest tighten. Compromise? He whispered. It felt like the word was a heavy stone, drowning his earlier hope. What did it mean for their project? Would it twist into something unrecognizable, something that didn't embody the spirit they had worked so hard to ignite? So they want to control our vision? Joe leaned forward, sparking agitation in the air. This is exactly what I was worried about. They're wielding power over us. Not necessarily, Ted said, trying to ground the swirling emotions. What if this is a chance to get visibility for our project? If we can bend just a little, maybe it leads to getting what we really need in the long run. Some in the crowd nodded, sensing the possibility of something worthwhile. Yet Joe's narrowed eyes were like storm clouds looming overhead, ready to burst. And what if it erases everything we stand for? What if we become just another project on their blacklist? Ted could see others wrestling with the dilemma too, their expressions mirroring the struggle between hope and fear. Was it worth sacrificing their ideals for the chance of funding? Let us take a moment, Marcus said, stepping in before the brewing tension escalated further. He turned to the officer, his voice steady but strained. Can you give us time to deliberate? What's the deadline for our decision? 2 weeks, the officer replied, his tone almost apologetic. I know it's short, but if we manage to pull this off, we could unlock significant resources. 2 weeks, Ted murmured, feeling the pressure rise like a wave about to crash. They had just begun to find their footing, and now they faced a choice that could change everything. I don't like this. Joe's voice cut into the air, each word sharp and pointed. We can't let ourselves be manipulated. We need to stand our ground. Around the room, tensions escalated. Some members rallied behind Joe's firm stance, while others seemed ready to embrace the opportunity, even at the risk of compromise. Time to break up into smaller groups again, Ted said, trying to reclaim the energy. Let us talk it over. We have to weigh the risks against the potential. As the crowd broke into smaller clusters, the conversations whirled into a cacophony of fear, hope, and indecision. Ted found himself lost in thought, aware that every minute counted. In the back, he noticed Joe still standing apart, a frown etched across his face. It broke Ted's heart to see his friend so visibly torn. They had started this journey together, but now they felt like strangers on opposite sides. While voices melded into a quilt of opinions, Ted felt the weight of his own uncertainty. Could they truly save their community if it meant surrendering their core values? Everyone had a different story, and every story deserved a voice. Ted knew they had to find a way to unite their community's hopes and fears into something substantial. When the discussions quieted, Ted raised his hand. Faces turned toward him, open, searching for guidance. Let us take a vote. We need a path forward, even if it's not perfect. As everyone exchanged apprehensive glances, a whisper of doubt floated through the air. Were they ready to decide their future based on a time frame that left little room for consideration? That's when Ted felt a flicker of resolve. Remember, when we started this, we said we'd do it together. Let us not let fear divide us now. Joe's eyes met Ted's, a flicker of understanding crossing between them. In this chaotic moment, they were still a part of the same story, but what would that story become? As the votes gathered speed, Ted couldn't shake the feeling that all they had been through was just the beginning. What awaited them on the other side of this decision? Would they emerge stronger or falter under the pressure? The weight of the unknown loomed ahead, and Ted felt the pulse of change quickening. Could they find a way to navigate the dark waters together? The room hummed with a strange energy, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Ted looked around, seeing familiar faces illuminated by the harsh overhead lights, brows furrowed, lips pressed into thin lines. It was a reminder of how much they had invested not just in the project, but in each other. Every person in this room had a stake in either the potential pain of compromise or the promise of something greater. As the murmurs faded, Ted drew in a deep breath. Let us remember who we are, he urged, raising his voice just enough for everyone to hear. We've fought too hard to let ourselves be intimidated. If we're going to compromise, let us make sure it's on our terms. The terms will matter less than our vision, a woman's voice rose from the back. Maya, a spirited advocate for the community center. If we dilute what we've built, we might as well not build anything at all. Change for the sake of change isn't progress. Nods rippled through the gathering. Some seemed to agree, while others exchanged anxious glances, feeling the tightrope of indecision beneath their feet. Ted's heart sank. He wished he could offer clarity, but he knew there were no easy answers. Just then, Joe stepped forward, his shoulders squared, determination radiating from him. What if we take a wider view? We could involve more voices, bring in different perspectives. If we present a united front, we might find a path that honors our vision and impresses the funding bodies. Are you sure? Ted's voice wavered slightly. Joe had been adamant about standing firm against any shifts in their plans. This suggestion felt sudden, almost like a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. We've discussed having a clear stance. What's changed? Joe paused, vulnerability breaking through. What's changed is the stakes, Ted. We're not just fighting for walls, we're fighting for hope, for our shared future. And we can't lose that. A thoughtful silence fell. Could they really shift approaches? The thought bounced around Ted's mind like a pinball, sparking flickers of hope. But what if trying to meet in the middle ultimately led them to lose ground altogether? We need to prepare for the meeting in a couple of weeks, Ted said, bringing the focus back to action. Let us organize who will speak and what points we need to emphasize as non-negotiable. We can create compromises that don't strip us of our goals. Hands flew up as people volunteered to lead various aspects of the presentation. Ted felt a rush of energy in the room, a collective willingness to push through the fear and uncertainty. Joe, however, remained quiet, his face still clouded with worry. Ted noticed and approached his friend. Hey, you okay? You've gone quiet. I want what's best for us, Ted, Joe replied, the weight of the last few minutes etched across his features. But I can't shake the feeling that if we bend too much, we might break. Ted placed a reassuring hand on Joe's shoulder. And if we don't bend at all, we might miss an opportunity to bring real change. Let us make sure we're vigilant. The room around them was alive with ideas as they began breaking down tasks. Laughter and chatter floated through the air, knitting back some connection despite the looming doubt. But as they divided the work, that nagging thought lingered in Ted's mind. What if they did compromise too much? Would that really lead to greater good, or simply lead them to lose everything they cared for? As the evening wore on, emotions spiraled into discussions of fear, hope, and inevitable uncertainty. The clock ticked steadily, a reminder that time was of the essence. And that unshakable feeling of change hung in the air like a thick fog. Was this truly the moment where they could steer their destinies? Or would it push them down a path of no return? Ted sought out the window as darkness enveloped the sky. Instead of clarity, all he felt was the weight of the unknown pressing against him. Could they find a way to stay true to their vision while navigating this storm? Tomorrow would certainly bring new challenges. But could they remain steadfast in what mattered, no matter the cost? The next morning felt heavy with expectation as the community group gathered once more. The air was charged, and the weight of decisions loomed over them, palpable and deliberate. Ted arrived earlier than usual, hoping to shake off the night's doubts. As he set up chairs and arranged the notes from yesterday's meeting, he couldn't help but replay the conversation he had with Joe. What if we bend too much? The words echoed in his mind like a stubborn refrain. The clamor of voices soon filled the space. They were excited, their energy contagious, but Ted struggled to match their enthusiasm. He could see Maya animatedly talking to a small group, her passion evident as she gestured wildly. It was good to see that fire in her. After all, it was what had initially brought them all together. Yet, as others arrived, the underlying anxiety bubbled beneath their excitement like a simmering pot, ready to boil over. Joe arrived next, looking even more troubled than before. Ted caught his eye and nodded slightly as if silently promising to support him through the day's challenges. Once everyone settled, Ted took a deep breath and opened the meeting. Okay, let us share where we stand on the points we need to emphasize for the funders. I want to hear everyone's ideas. Hands shot up eagerly, and the room buzzed with voices. Someone proposed focusing on how the community center would benefit local youth, while another championed the environmental impact of the building design. Ted admired the spark within them. But as each voice rose in excitement, he felt an ominous sensation deep in his gut. It was an energy that scraped against his hope. Suddenly, a loud knock disturbed the flow. The door swung open, and the room fell silent. In walked Celia, the office manager, clutching a stack of papers. Her expression was grave, and the air shifted, dense with curiosity and concern. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "But we just received an urgent email from our potential funding body." Ted felt a chill run down his spine. "What is it?" Celia exchanged glances with the group, looking for the right words. "It appears there's been an issue. They have placed our project on hold indefinitely." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Ted's heart dropped. "What do you mean on hold? Wasn't he last night's strategy enough?" "They cited concerns regarding our proposal," she continued, shifting awkwardly. "They're requesting further revisions, which could take months." Frustration bubbled in Ted like boiling water. "Months? We can't afford that. We've already invested so much." His voice trailed off. A ripple of panic swept through the group as the weight of the news settled heavily amongst them. Maya's face was tight with determination. "This isn't just about the money, it's about our community. We can't let them take this from us. We need to fight back." "That's right." Joe's voice rose in support. "If they want revisions, we give them revisions. But we stay true to our vision." Inspired by their unity, Ted felt a flame reignite within him. "We'll turn this setback into an opportunity. Let us review what we have. We need to meet their demands without compromising what we've built." As discussions resumed with renewed fervor, Ted's focus sharpened. He could see now, this was their moment to define themselves. But even as hope blossomed, an unsettling thought bubbled back to the surface. If they pushed too hard, could they risk losing the very support they were fighting to keep? Before he could voice this worry, Celia cleared her throat again. "There's more. The email also mentioned they expect full transparency regarding our funding sources. We need to prove ourselves completely beyond doubt." A collective gasp broke across the room. Ted felt his heart race faster. The stakes were getting higher. What if their plans exposed them to scrutiny they weren't ready for? What if their darkest fears became a reality? The room buzzed with frustration and worry, but Ted kept his focus. This was a turning point, and he knew they needed to act with intention. Each person in that room had dreams that shook the foundations of their futures. Would they embrace the challenge ahead, or falter when faced with the fire? As the meeting continued, Ted glanced at Joe, who offered a reassuring nod. They were all in this together. But they were skirting a cliff's edge, and a misstep could tip them into the abyss. Tomorrow's decisions loomed on the horizon. Would they rise to meet the challenge or falter under the pressure? The unknown stretched before them, dark and unpredictable, like clouds gathering before a storm. The day was a mix of determination and dread, shadowed by the news that had shaken their collective resolve. As Ted looked around the room, he could see the fear and ambition written across every face. There was an unusual tension, as if their dreams and realities were locked in a dance of chaos, waiting for the first misstep. "Okay, let us break into small groups to tackle the revisions," Ted suggested, trying to channel their anxiety into productivity. "We need new ideas. Every voice matters. Let us figure out what we can change without losing sight of our mission." The group scattered, clustering in different corners. Ted joined Maya and Joe at a table laden with notes, feeling the pulse of urgency quicken his heartbeat. "I think we can highlight our community partners more," Maya said, furrowing her brow. "If we showcase the local businesses that support us, it might strengthen our appeal." "Great idea," Ted agreed. "But we also need to address what they see as the weaknesses in our original proposal. They don't trust us fully yet." Joe leaned back, arms crossed, an unmistakable frown etched on his face. What if we make it clear that this isn't just about money? The community impact is real. They can't deny that. Maya's eyes lit up. Exactly. We tell them how the center serves as a hub for educational programs and resources, especially for underprivileged kids. It should speak for itself. As they jotted ideas down and mixed enthusiasm with worry, a knock on the door made them jump. Celia peeked in again, looking more anxious than before. I just got off the phone with. She hesitated, glancing at the group, then continued, it's about a significant funding opportunity that's just opened up, but there are complications. They might expect an exclusive partnership, which could threaten our current plans. A low murmur filled the room as discussions simmered with discomfort. Ted sensed the hesitation brewing. Would they be sacrificing their community for a lifeline that could just as easily sink them? What do we even know about this? Joe exclaimed, shaking his head. We don't have time for half measures, or something that's just a shiny promise leading us astray. But what if this is our chance? Maya countered. What if we could secure the resources we desperately need? We can always negotiate the terms. Ted felt the weight of conflicting opinions pull at him. They were at a crossroads, one path leading toward a new alliance, the other keeping them rooted in what they built together. Let us list the pros and cons, he suggested, looking back and forth between Maya and Joe. Everyone leaned closer, their attention unwavering. As they scrawled out their ideas, Ted felt a mix of fervor and fear. Could they truly trust this new prospect, or would it lead to more uncertainty? Hours passed as they delved deeper into heated conversations, the room becoming a battleground of ideals. Each proposal they devised felt increasingly significant, and Ted could feel the weight of their hopes pressing down on him like a heavy quilt. When they finally broke, exhaustion washed over him, but the spark in Maya's eyes ignited something within. They were fighters, united in their quest. But as they gathered their belongings, Ted couldn't shake that nagging doubt. They stood on shifting ground. The impossible task ahead felt like trying to climb an unsteady mountain while the rules kept changing. Whatever we choose, we need to make sure it's the right choice for all of us, Ted reminded the group as they stood by the door, bracing for tomorrow's unveiling. As they left, a part of him remained, tethered to the fear of the unknown. Was it better to hold tightly to their truth or venture into an uncertain partnership that could shift the landscape entirely? Tomorrow, the meeting with the funders loomed like a giant wave, threatening to crash over them. Would they withstand it, or would they become swept away, each decision echoing the impossible question, what were they truly willing to sacrifice? The day of the meeting dawned, crisp and clear, reflective of the resolve swelling within Ted. As he prepared to face the funders, he felt a heaviness in his stomach, yet it was accompanied by a flicker of excitement. The decisions they had made over the last few days wrapped around him like a protective cloak, motivating him to reclaim the dream Maplewood had once thrived on. With every step towards the community hall, Ted's resolve solidified. This was the moment to bridge the gaps, to unite against the looming storm of uncertainty. Today, they would show the funders not just their proposals, but who they were, a community ready to rise together, molded by their shared struggles and hopes. Inside the hall, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Voices rose and fell in a frantic rhythm, conversations pulsating with enthusiasm despite the tight squeeze of fear. Maya was working the crowd, rallying everyone around their cause, while Joe stood nearby, engaging a few skeptics. Remember, today's not just a pitch. It's a demonstration of our strength, Ted said to Jess, who had come to lend support. She stood beside him, her eyes radiating confidence. Whatever happens, we're in this together. Finally, the door opened, and the funders entered, their aloof expressions competing with the passionate energy in the air. Ted stepped boldly to the front. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We are here not just to present a proposal, but to share a vision built by the heart of Maplewood. As Ted took his seat, he watched Maya present the community's stories, families whose lives had been touched, kids dreaming of brighter futures, and businesses that had stepped up, ready to collaborate. Each tale wove into the fabric of their shared resolve. Violins of emotion swelled in the crowd, and Ted felt his heart quicken. Together, we fashioned an inclusive project that not only addresses the needs of our community, Joe added, leaning in with intensity, but builds a framework for unity. If we are to receive support, it cannot come at the cost of our values. Applause rippled through the gathering as the funders exchanged cautious glances, their interest piqued. A flicker of hope surged within Ted. Were they finally beginning to understand? As the meeting unfolded, they tackled every concern with transparency, weaving solutions into each answer, bolstered by the strength of their shared commitment. Compromise didn't mean surrender, it meant evolving their vision. Finally, Ted found the courage to directly address the lead funder. We understand that change comes with challenges, but what we ask is for dialogue, not direction. We need your partnership. Let us meet you halfway, with our truths intact. When the last of their presentations wound down, a heavy silence settled. Each person held their breath, waiting for an answer. It seemed to stretch into eternity. Then, the funder leaned forward. Your passion is evident. We would like to proceed, but we need a commitment that you're willing to adapt. A tentative agreement on your terms will set us on a new path. Ted felt a rush of emotion. Absolutely. We want to align our vision with reality without losing who we are. We're ready. A wave of relief swept through the room, met with cheer and applause. In that moment, Ted knew they had turned a corner. Not only had they secured vital resources, but they had forged deeper connections within their community, igniting the spirit of unity that had almost faded. With smiles and laughter, they began to celebrate, high-fiving and embracing each other. The darkness of fear had cracked, allowing light to seep through. Jess wrapped her arms around Ted, tears glistening in her eyes. You did it, Dad. We did it. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ted pulled her closer. It wasn't merely about the funding, it was about healing, understanding, and coming together as family, not just with blood, but with the collective heartbeat of a town. As the evening light filtered through the windows, casting warm hues upon the gathering, the seeds of hope had taken root. Ted made a quiet vow to continue dismantling the barriers born of fear and distrust. Together, they would write new chapters for Maplewood, proud chapters, filled with transformation and resilience. And as they rejoiced, he couldn't help but think of those whispers that had once played upon his fears. They had become a song of their own, one of growth, belonging, and a shared dream that was finally within reach. Now, they were truly ready to embrace whatever came next, together. If you want to follow this journey and see where life takes Ted and the Maplewood community, you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button right now to feed the algorithm and keep our stories alive. And I want to hear from you. Comment below about your thoughts on this transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring journey. Let us spread this message far and wide.